the time has come for us to talk about accounts. And it's something that we've kind of been looking at for some time, but we haven't really explicitly talked about. So let's talk about it. For starters, you can see that accounts has its own little link in the left-hand navigation here. And if you click on it, you'll see a standard list view of the accounts that you have access to in your GrandCare world. And it's a searchable list, and it's got some filters for it. And here we'll come back to the Add Account button later. But if we search for our account, or maybe we just find it in our list of last viewed accounts, we can click through. And here we are at our Mary Smith account. And this is the summary page as indicated by the top tab up here. And we'll cover what these other tabs contain. But here you'll see the Open Care menu button and the Show Touchscreen button and even the Video Call button that you can click on and initiate a video call to this particular account. And there's some quick status updates. The system is up, that's good. An alert has been sent out in the last 24 hours. There's no motion sensors enabled for this account, otherwise we would see that here. There's touchscreen activity just a little while ago. And there are no wellness readings recently to report either. Well, let's talk about these tabs. That's the Summary tab. This is the Details tab. Now here you see we get some additional buttons here for editing this account or editing this resident. Now the resident is a part of the account. A resident is a property of the account. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Here you can see the address of where this account is located and the time zone, date of birth, resident name, etc. Some notes about this particular resident. Now we've got some other buttons here too, like to synchronize the data between the GrandCare server and the data on the touchscreen is sometimes important to do. And sometimes we want to transfer this account maybe to another system, another piece of hardware. Supposing Mary Smith's touchscreen fell over and was broken, we would take this account off of that particular system and we would place it on another one, a new one that wasn't broken. And because we've transferred the account, her experience of the GrandCare system would be fairly seamless with that transition. And then the other thing we might do is we might remove this system from this account. And if you go later on, we'll see on the system page, you can remove the account from the system, which is of course the exact same thing. Now down here we have something called an away period. This is important because a lot of times you have GrandCare set up to notify you about all sorts of conditions that might be going on. People are taking or not taking their health readings, there's motion or there's no motion. But then what happens when Mary Smith is away? Maybe she's visiting family for a few weeks, or maybe she has a short hospital stay. You don't want GrandCare sending out all these spurious alerts just because someone is away from home. So in order to get around this problem, we have something called an away period. And here you can see we can set our start date. We could say that maybe Mary Smith is going to be away starting New Year's Eve and then maybe coming back on the following Thursday. Now that we've set that away period, we can include some notes like maybe where she's going to be. And then save our away period. And now there it is. And so the whole point of that is that between those two dates, GrandCare is not going to be sending out any alerts. So it's important that you get these right and that you don't have somebody listed as away who is not in fact away. That would be bad. But that's how you do that. If we scroll down a little further, you can see that account associations, like here's the system assigned to this account, 315539. It's an HP NV20 series piece of hardware. It's up. And we can click right through on this. Let's just click. We can click, there's the system. You can see now that we're in Systems down here in the navigation. You can see that we've jumped to an entirely different way to look at this. Let's go back. And you can see the group that Mary Smith is in. We could click through to that group if we want to, or the distributor, or the community, any community that she might be in as well. Other things that are going on here is we can see the backup status, that there was a successful backup just yesterday. That's great. And you can see that we can initiate a backup right now if we want to. If maybe that hardware is broken in some way, maybe the touchscreen doesn't work, and we want to replace it with one that does, obviously. So first we want to make sure that we do a backup before we initiate that swap. Okay, so let's take a look at our next tab, which is Data. Now, this is where you see the Reports button, and I think we're just going to make a whole separate video just about that subject. So we're going to skip it for now. In the meantime, here is our activity summary, and there's not much to report. Apparently somebody pushed the Call Me button on 12:10, but it's important to notice that this is a pop-up menu. It's visually it's easy to miss, but there's lots of stuff in here. So we might just look at the action button. There's the history of that, or maybe we want to see the alerts that have been sent out on this system. There they are. There's an email, a text message, and so on. You can see that the system emails me. It also calls me because I use this for a lot of these demonstration videos. So there's a whole bunch of stuff to look at here, including if this unit had any motion graphs in it, we would see that graphed out for us here. And even the health readings that we might see here too. Let's stop for a moment and look at an account that actually has some data. That'd be more fun. Okay, so we're looking at my other training demo system, the one that is installed at home, that actually has some sensors on it that we could look at. So where were we? We were at the Account Data tab. So here we go. We have some activity summary. You can see that my motion sensor by the front door was triggered almost 4 hours ago. That was undoubtedly when I left to come into the office today. A similar time for my kitchen. And you can see that the neck pendant was pushed 3 days ago, and the on-screen I'm OK button was again pushed 3 days ago. And if we want to, we could see the motion graph. And here you can see there's the kitchen node, there's the front door, and so on. So there's all sorts of stuff here that we might look at, including all the health information that that system might be collecting. So just so you know that that's where that's what you find in the Account Data tab. Let's move on to the Caregiving tab. Now you can see that you get a list of caregivers. You get a list of the alertable contacts. And there's the most recent care note for this system. And you can see that there's the care plan calendar that we've talked about in a separate video. That's where that lives. And finally, there's the Communicate tab. Now you can see this is where you find the photo albums that were created using the GrandCare mobile app for your iPhone. And here's where we could send a brief message right to the screen just from your browser here, and it's just a one-way message, so they can't respond to it. And you can even have the option of doing that emergency message. And we've talked about this in another video, so I'm not going to cover it now. So that's where that is found, in the Communicate tab. Now let's do something different. let's go back to the accounts link in the primary navigation here so that we can get at that add account button. Let's click it now. Step 1, the very first thing you have to do is select a group for this account to live in. And so we might say that that's the group that we want to make this new account for. And I'll click the next button. Now, this account information, right away we're confronted with a field labeled name. Now, it's true that some people put the name of the resident in this field, but I recommend not doing that because there already is a place for a resident name, and we'll see that in a moment. But this might be instead a room number in a congregate living situation. It might be a location. It might be the name of the customer, and by customer I mean it may be like the adult child of this GrandCare touchscreen user who has come to you to purchase GrandCare, and they are ostensibly your customer and not the touchscreen user at all. Room 322, and of course I'd want to fill out all these address fields and so on. Make sure I had the correct time zone for this account. And if it's a congregate living situation, they might have a phone extension for that community. And then there's this funny little checkbox here that just is labeled is a demonstration account. And of course the explanation below it tells you that the only thing that this does is it makes sure that updates to this account will not apply during normal business hours. Why is that important? It's because sometimes you take your demo account, you take your demo system out to do a demonstration. Maybe you're in some conference room at some potential customer's campus and you're ready and all the important people are sitting around the table and you turn your GrandCare on and you want to demonstrate it, and the first thing it does is do an update. You don't want that. So if you check this box, that doesn't happen to you. There's some other settings down here, caregiving settings. This is an option for caregivers to modify the care plan on the touchscreen. So if you're an on-site caregiver and you're using that caregiving button and you're you're checking off the care plan services as you go through your shift, do you want to have that touchscreen caregiver, do you want them to have the ability to modify the care plan? Maybe they want to add something to it, or maybe they want to take something away or change something in some other way. If you check this box, they'll be able to. If you don't check it, they won't. So date and time formats, pretty simple. Other touchscreen settings, we get some language stuff, and we get another way to look at the screen off between times, and a religious preference for the calendar and so on, and what the master pin is. This is duplicate stuff from the care menu, so nothing too important there. And finally, the wellness settings. Here's another way to look at the default medication reminder tone. You can set that here if you'd like. Now, let's click Next in our new account creation. Now, step 3, add a resident to this account, right? Every account has to have a resident. So I should do this correctly and put the last name where it goes. You can give them a nickname if you'd like. They should all have a date of birth. That's really, really important that we do that because GrandCare keeps track of so many things that might be medical in nature. So we want to make sure that the date of birth for every resident is included. And here now you can upload a profile picture for this resident if you'd like, and you should do that. And if they have a phone number, you'll want to include it here. And if they have a cell number, you'll want to include that here. And if they have an email address, you'll want to include that here. And so on. And we have a place for notes as well. Let's just click through to Next. Now, this is important. Now, we're making an account, and an account, to be functional, has to be paired with a system. This account has to be told which piece of hardware that it's going to live on, at least for now. So here you can see the list of systems that we might put it on, and notice that they all have the status of inventory. So these are systems, and they have a system ID number, as you can see, but they have no account on them. That's why they're in inventory status. So if I select one of these systems to put this account on and click Next, now I have an opportunity to assign users, existing caregivers to this account, or maybe I want to just add them brand new with this button here. But I'm just going to finish the account. There we are. There's our account, room 322. And if you go back to the home screen, you can see there I am, room 322. That's one of my last viewed accounts. Now you'll see the other thing that's happened here. Did you notice that it was blue? And that's blue because that's a particular status that a system can have. It's called pre-install. Now, what happens when you pair an account to a system, that automatically puts that in pre-install, and one of two things is going to happen at that time. You're either going to do a whole software installation on this particular piece of hardware, and then that would take it out of pre-install once it's done. But if that particular piece of hardware already has GrandCare installed on it, then you wouldn't need to do a software installation, in which case there's another way to get that out of pre-install. But I think that's getting too far afield here, because we're going to talk about accounts and systems and how they work a little bit more detail when we talk about re-provisioning systems. So that's it for accounts.